An elephant bull is down, and the recovery team is frantically working out a way to place a collar around his neck. He's fallen awkwardly, and they can't get the collar past the dense bush he's lying on.
Yeah, we're trying to get the collar around, but we're battling like hell.
We use something, a chainsaw.
Chainsaw. Bring the chainsaw, Willeman.
He's one of a group of 12 elephants who live in the heart of what was once the Thukela Biosphere Reserve near Vienna in KwaZulu-Natal. He's being fitted with a collar so that he and his group can be tracked in the dense bush.
Go on. Come on, look at it.
But the team just can't get the collar around his neck, and it's not safe for him to stay down much longer. The disappointment is tangible when, after more than half an hour of struggling, the veterinarian in charge decides they have to get the elephant back on his feet.
Okay, chaps. Oh, shit. Not for that good trying. Take the collar. Someone got my toolbox. Everybody up, guys.
This is the land that's been home to the small group of elephants for the past 14 years. When they got here, they were a loose collection of orphaned calves who'd survived an elephant cull. Culling was practiced in several southern African states for nearly 3 decades. In the Kruger Park alone, more than 16,000 elephants were killed between 1966 and 1994. Some young elephants survived these culls, taking with them the memories of their families being butchered. The young calves were captured as they stayed close to their dead and dying mothers. These traumatized youngsters were sent all over the world by the Kruger Park, and 9 of them ended up here at Thukela. Their ages ranged from 2 to 6.5 years old. For the youngest 3, the experiences were just far too traumatic, and they died. The surviving elephants grew up and formed their own new family unit, one that's allowed them to start having babies of their own, and the group now numbers 12 individuals. This is the Thukela Reserve, the last remaining section of what was once the Thukela Biosphere Reserve, and it's here that the elephants spend most of their time. Mark Calverley owns and runs the Thukela Safari and River Rafting Company. He's been here since 1983. He was one of the original people who brought the young elephants to the biosphere. He says he feels guilty because they've failed the elephants.
What was 100,000 hectares has dropped to 25,000 hectares, has dropped even lower. I think we're now down to single figures, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 hectares. The pressures on the elephant from the outside are just going to be too great, and they will become a problem.
The biosphere, which once had more than 30 members, disbanded in 2000 as a result of a number of successful land claims lodged in the area. As a result, fences have not been maintained, and the elephants have been able to walk through onto the adjacent farmland. This has caused damage and great unhappiness in the area.
Government buys land, they don't buy the animals on it. But then what happens to the animals that live there? One cannot expect that the owners whose land is being bought to remain responsible for animals once they are gone. I mean, it's an impossible situation.
With the demise of the biosphere, the Thukela elephants now find themselves landless. All expectations are that what was once the Thukela biosphere is set to revert to agricultural land. The new owners have made it clear that elephants are not welcome here. So it was not surprising that in March this year it was decided to get the hunters in to remove the elephants. The new communal landowners of the biosphere, as well as those landowners on its borders, had had enough.
And so I got this anonymous phone call to tell me that these elephants were going to be shot. And I immediately phoned Michelle, who is a colleague of mine in Animal Rights Africa. We discussed and we decided there's no ways we were going to leave them.
Steve Smith is an animal rights activist who has been instrumental in rescuing animals from threatening situations for many years. His organization's priority was to find a suitable home for the elephants and to start fundraising for the move.
But it was a massive thing because we had to go through the logistical process of organizing the funding. We had to organize the translocation team. We had to ensure that there was a destination. We had to find a destination.
The plan to move the elephants came together just more than a week ago, when everyone met up on a farm in the Vienna area. It was all systems go. With the arrival of the helicopter, the team was fully assembled. Everyone was excited. All the necessary permits had been issued. It was just a question of finding the elephants, loading them and driving off. Do Grobler headed up the team. He's one of the best elephant translocation specialists around. and he has several years' experience as a wildlife veterinarian at the Kruger Park. With anticipation in the air, the helicopter took off. The latest report on the elephants' whereabouts was that they were a mere 5 kilometers down the road. But the news wasn't good. At first, there wasn't an elephant in sight. Nothing. Just bush as far as the eye could see. Then, suddenly, on the side of a hill, there they were. All in a group, but much further from where they were expected to be. Also, the area was very dense and difficult for a recovery team to work in. So the helicopter returned to base to plan the next strategy.
I say we got the elephants, but they are far and such an accessible place. It's I want to put 2 radio collars on, and then just wake them up again, and then we'll catch them tomorrow again.
You darted them?
Huh?
You darted them?
No, we'll dart them now. I want the ground crew there because with this terrain, I want people on the ground.
So it was onto the road with the ground crew, travelling the 20 kilometers to where the elephants were, up on the high ground. It wasn't long before we spotted the chopper coming over us and circling up ahead. The elephants were in the valley. With the signal given that the matriarch Nelly had been darted, we moved in. She went down quickly. First, she had to be pushed over onto her side so the team could fit the collar.
Okay. Then she's ready to wake up.
Along with Nelly, a bull, Bukisa, was darted and collared later in the afternoon. The plan was working. There were now 2 elephants with collars on. At the report back session later that night, Doe expressed his concern about the elephants' reactions to the helicopter.
But one thing I can assure you, these things are not acting normal to helicopter that I'm used to. You know, they get berserk. I mean, there's no other word. I'm serious. As soon as I dart it, something just loosens up. I mean, it's obvious that your oaks.
But I can tell you, though, the times that we have fetched them from all over this place, we've had choppers up on them. We had the last time they were shot with shotguns
To get them back.
to get them back with this rubber bullets.
Yeah.
They've been harassed with all sorts of handguns, and we don't know what else.
The question, of course, is whether we should be surprised. These elephants survived a cull that deprived them of their families. They've been harassed by helicopters and shotguns firing rubber bullets every time they leave the biosphere and have to be brought back.
Look, the idea for tomorrow is we've got the 2 collars on. I'm pretty sure that these 2 bulls, the last 2 bulls, they got a close bond. So they're going to join up together. I'm pretty sure about that. And then the cow hopefully will join up with her calf again.
The next morning, the helicopter crew found that the elephants had, under the cover of darkness, moved even further away from the planned capture site and into an even more inaccessible area, this time high up on a hill. They were now just too far from the capture site.
We found them. They're all together again. All of them. Nice, and they all look good. But they, in that high mountains, they probably moved about 2 kilometers. So there's no ways that we'll catch them today. No ways.
The decision to call off the rescue was a great disappointment all around. The elephant's safety in the interim was now worrying the animal rights group.
I mean, obviously, from our perspective, the interests of the elephants come first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And but then we need some assurance.
Yeah, no,
people
they'll.
here
I don't
that
think.
no one's going to kill them in the interim.
Sean, you heard what Doe said when he got out the helicopter there about where they are, hey? What we want is an assurance from you guys that now that they've collared them and that you can see the commitment of everybody to getting them out, that there aren't going to be constant threats that if the elephants come, we're going to shoot them, we're going to shoot them.
Is there going to be any compensation at any stage for damages?
Until such time as we move them off the land, you are covered by insurance through the original owners, which was Matioda, Mark Calverley and those guys. So there is insurance and there will be compensation, but not from us, from the insurance that already is in place.
Well, we obviously want what's best for the elephant, and at least there's action, and if they can be removed, let them go. We obviously won't shoot them or anything then.
But despite this assurance, the tension climbed again when another landowner, Vic Albers, came along and threatened to shoot the elephants.
What is it about somebody like you that adopts this kind of attitude?
Something's got to be done, and if I'm threatening to shoot these elephants, maybe that will something. Because I mean,
So
we've got collars.
You threatening to shoot them now can't change anything. All it can do is piss us off something chronic. That's what it can do. We have brought a lot of people here to try and get these elephants out. The vet has told us he cannot move them because of where they are. We're not going to put their lives at risk by darting them in the middle of a valley where no one can get to them.
We have lived in this area. We're the guys that put up with this. I've got neighbours on there. I can go down now and bring you 40 people who come and talk to a right here in 10 minutes time about this.
But the fact that you see action, doesn't that sort of get through to you that something's
the
been
government
done?
also stands up all the time and says we're going to fight poverty.
We are not the government.
Let's just ask for a week or two. Give us a week or two or a month. If they come on this farm, I promise you I'll be here. We catch them. I can't catch them in the mountains there, seriously.
Got that.
The biggest irony of this story is the very fact that these elephants stay in such isolated areas because they fear people. Yet it's that fear that's keeping them from a safe and secure home in the Limpopo province. How does one get the message to them that the people who are after them this time are people who really want to help? A month ago, Carte Blanche introduced you to the Thukela elephants from Vienna in KwaZulu-Natal. The elephants are cull orphans, and they were brought to Vienna 13 years ago, where they were released in what was then the Thukela biosphere. But the biosphere collapsed after a number of successful land claims, and the new owners didn't want the elephants, so the decision was made to shoot them.
And so I got this anonymous phone call to tell me that these elephants were going to be shot. And I immediately phoned Michelle, who is a colleague of mine in Animal Rights Africa. We discussed it and we decided there's no ways we were going to leave them.
Through their lawyers, Animal Rights Africa got agreement from the landowners to put the killing plan on hold, on condition that the elephants were removed as soon as possible. But on the first attempt, the elephants were not cooperating.
We found them, but they, in that high mountains, they probably moved about 2 kilometers. So there's no ways that we'll catch them today, no way.
The decision to call off the rescue was a great disappointment all round.
And obviously, from our perspective, the interests of the elephants come first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And but then we need some assurance from the people here that no one's going to kill them in the interim.
We obviously want what's best for the elephant, and at least there's action. And if they can be removed, yeah, let them go. We obviously won't shoot them or anything.
With this assurance, the capture was postponed.
Give us a week or two or a month. If they come on this farm, I promise you I'll be here. We catch them. I can't catch them in the mountains there, seriously.
And Doe was right. It did take a month. When news came that the elephants had moved down from the high ground, the capture team was reactivated, and the second attempt to move the elephants got underway. The crew had been arriving since dawn to get everything ready at the loading site. Once the elephants started coming in, there would be little time to waste. For both humans and elephants, this was going to be a difficult day. For the elephants, their peaceful morning was again shattered by that most dreaded of sounds: helicopter rotor blades slicing through the air. While the ground team moved into position, the helicopter moved the elephants onto a level field where the trucks would have better access. For the youngest member of the group, 7-month-old Sheena, it was difficult keeping up. She'd already walked 10 kilometers that morning. This time, there was no getting away from the darts. The whole family was out in the open.
When those elephants suddenly appeared out of the bush into that open area, and then they started dropping, and it could just as well have been an elephant cull taking place.
They should never have become orphans. They should never have been thrown into Thukela all by themselves. They should never have been harassed systematically as they were in Thukela.
Once down, the elephants could for the first time be examined and measured. They each got a number painted on their buttocks for future identification. Originally, everyone thought there were 12 elephants, but when the darting was over, only 9 lay on the ground. 3 of the original 10 Kruger orphans were not there. One, a 21-year-old bull, was hunted in 2005, and no one we asked seemed to know what had happened to the other two. The capture team worked fast and efficiently, and while some animals were still being measured, the flatbed trucks were already starting up to transport the first elephants to the loading area. One of the most extraordinary sights was to see animal rights activists working alongside landowners and hunters from the Vienna area. Their motives different, their goal the same.
Okay, give that number. Translocations are normally probably about 80% planning and 20% executions, but a lot of things you can't control. You can't control the behavior of the elephants. You've got to learn to cope with problems in this game. You've got to be thinking on your feet all the time and try and just smooth it out as you go along.
2 more radio collars were fitted to the elephants, bringing the total number of individuals collared to 4. This would make it easy to track them in their new environment at San Wild. This is the elephant loading area. It's about 4 or 5 kilometers from where the animals were originally darted. The elephants have first been put in a container where they're resuscitated, and from there they're moved on to a waiting truck that'll eventually take them on the 15-hour drive to their new home at San Wild. The process is quite simple. The elephants, who are lying on a thick rubber mat, are pulled off the flatbed into this chamber, where they're given a shot to wake them up. Probably the most important thing to remember when handling elephants is to keep their trunks open, otherwise they can't breathe. But as Doe said, no matter how carefully you plan a translocation, things do go wrong, and then you have to play it by ear. Young Sheena, the baby in the group, was getting special treatment to keep her safe amidst all the rough action. She was transported on the back of a bakkie, and she was the first to be loaded into the transport truck. That was when things went horribly wrong. Sheena was still struggling to get to her feet when Gangile, a 20-year-old female, was allowed to go through. Without warning, she turned on Sheena and gored her badly, slamming her tusk through Sheena's left ear and into her little body. Gangile, having moved away from Sheena, was now looking quite disoriented and just stood there as if she could not believe what she'd just done. Sheena was now even more terrified and confused by this attack from a member of her own family. She cried and called for her mother as she tried to climb out of this foreign place.
The way that one cow reacted to the small calf, I mean, it's not something that I want to see as a normal behavior. That was very, very odd.
But Sheena was in for another knock, this time from the next group that came through the doors onto the truck. Fortunately, this group included Sheena's mother, Nellie, and the youngster could begin to calm down.
The only reason why I think that cow attacked that calf is because the calf was busy trying to get up right in front of her, and she saw it as like in a foreign area.
For young Sheena, there was a long, painful journey ahead of her before Doe could treat her wounds. It was impossible to get to her now. She'd just have to wait. As the last bull, 20-year-old Bikiso, was brought in, it became clear that he'd probably have to stay behind. There simply wasn't enough room for him on the truck as well. It already had 8 elephants loaded. He'd be given food and water and be collected once the first group reached San Wild. Early the next morning, the truck arrived at the San Wild gate. Everyone here was keen to see the new arrivals. But there was one last obstacle in the way. Ironically, it was the San Wild gate. After a lot of maneuvering, they found the problem. The truck was lying too low. The only solution was to pull it through the gate. So with the help of 2 4x4s connected in tandem and with an enormous pull, the truck was through. The elephants had arrived at their new home. First out were the 2 adult and 1 adolescent bulls, tentatively walking down the ramp into the 1-hectare boma area with an electrified fence.
I cried, because they had the opportunity to live, and we did that. A lot of help from individuals, from ordinary people, from organizations, and the work that we've put in, and we did this. Fabulous.
Our commitment to the animals is for the rest of their lives, and hopefully the public out there will support us in being committed to them for the rest of their lives.
We owe them that, at least.
Unlike at Thukela, here the elephants will not be harassed by people. Louise Joubert is a founder trustee of SANWild.
We had so many people working against the elephants, not against us, but against the elephants, trying to tell us that these animals are so traumatized, that they are problem animals, that we are just going to have so much hassle with them from beginning to end, and that the best solution to these particular elephants was to kill them, And I think that's where my fighting spirit takes over. And I feel they deserve a second chance, and that we are actually obliged to give it to them.
The moment the 3 bulls were out, Doe could pay attention to the injured Sheena.
You see what that cow did? She went down on it like this with both tusks, and she hit it. So she hit this ear and like there. So this is how the 2 holes happened. The wound is just through the skin, and it severed some of the muscles, but it's not through into the rib cage, and obviously not into the pleural cavity. But it was definitely a very hard knock. I mean, she went down with the full weight on it.
She was okay. With her stitches in and antibiotics administered, she was ready to go. As the remaining elephants came out of the truck, they quickly moved away from the people. The last one out was little Sheena, and she had to sprint to catch up with her family. But just when you think it's all over, the unexpected happens. Halfway through the release, we heard a noise on the perimeter fence. When we came to inspect, we saw the damage and realized that the elephants had broken out of the boma, and they're currently roaming somewhere in the vicinity. The group is being constantly monitored, but from a distance. SANWild is limiting human contact to the minimum. The elephants at SANWild are wearing collars, which means we can use this tracking device to find out exactly where they are. And the good news is, from what we're hearing, they're within the perimeter fence. Just like at Thukela, the elephants have moved into an inaccessible area. And although there is clear evidence from footprints and dung that they have come up to the perimeter fences, they've sensed the electricity and turned back. A good sign that they're settling down.
We've seen at SANWild lots of traumatized animals come in here. And within a couple of years, animals have settled down. If you drive around the reserve, the animals are just so relaxed. And I just hope by some miracle that the other animals in the reserve can convey to the Thukela elephants that this is their home now. This is where they will be able to spend the rest of their lives.
24 hours after being captured in Vienna, the last remaining bull arrived at SANWild. Bikiso walked out calmly, and with the boma electric fence now repaired, he remained in the enclosure for 2 days before being let out to join the rest of the herd. The hope is now that the original boma breakout and the attack on little Sheena was simply due to the stress and disorientation that the elephants experienced during their translocation. So, after weeks of tracking them, capturing them, transporting them and releasing them, the question now remains, will these elephants be able to face the challenges posed by their new environment? Will they be able to build a home for themselves here at SANWild, a home where one day they can die of natural causes?